Hey guys, this is Pat
and Dustin
with MattKiteboarding.com. Today we got a nice little kind of versus session impression comparison video. We got out yesterday on the 9-meter Evo D lab and the all-new Reedin Hypermodel.
Yeah, super choppy day, straight on shore, but you know, we got the comparison in, and yeah, I mean, right off the bat, as soon as we swapped, I immediately noticed the Reedin bar pressure was so much lighter than the D lab.
Yeah, no, I thought the exact same thing. All of a sudden I got on the D lab, I thought, well, is there more power? Did the wind tick up, whatever? Because all of a sudden the bar pressure on the Evo, I never thought of it really being as a very high bar pressure kite because I've never really ridden it back to back. I usually like start a session with it, end a session with it, and then but hopping between the two back and forth, they were completely different flying kites, I guess I'd say.
Totally.
Which I thought they're going to be a lot closer. With that being the kind of the first two, the Evo is kind of really the main Aluula 3-strut kite on the market in multiple sizes. They had the Flight, but the Flight's only 3-strut in some of the bigger sizes. So it's kind of cool comparing it with another D-Lab kite and 3 struts.
Totally. Yeah, I thought they were going to be super similar, but very different kites here, which took me for a surprise for sure. I will say, I think the Evo has a better low end.
Yes, no, I'd agree. It's one of those things, I don't know if it actually has the better low end or so that perceived low end, because I mean, we're both riding fine, we're both jumping well.
Yep.
I think it's just almost that more so that perceived of that heavier bar pressure, you feel like you have more pull.
Yep, the Evo feels a bit more grunty.
Yes.
You know, I prefer the medium bar pressure grunty kites, where I think
I actually prefer the lighter side of things. I think it just comes down to what we're both used to riding. I feel like typically I more gravitate towards those lighter bar pressures, especially in the smaller sizes when I'm doing like kite loops and have higher winds. I actually prefer having a little bit lighter bar pressure. Yeah, and I'm sure you can tune the bar pressure a bit on both these kites with changing the settings on the wingtips. But that being said, if it does feel lighter in the factory bar pressure, it's probably going to remain slightly lighter in the grand scheme of things. You can increase it slightly on this, but it's not going. I don't think it's going to make a night and day difference as far as how heavy that bar pressure actually is.
Yeah, this is just our comparison right out of the box.
Yeah, so I feel like the Hypermodel turned a bit faster.
Yeah.
The loops were a bit tighter, a little bit faster, feeling it wasn't pulling you as much through the loops. Where when I got on the Evo, I felt like whenever you're down looping the Evo or doing that, you're getting that little yank, the little punch from it.
Yep, that gruntiness pull, you know, kind of getting you into it. I would love to get the Hypermodel in like, you know, that 30 knot range. We were in that like 25.
Like 25.
Yeah, about there.
You get a gust every once in a while.
Yep, just super sketchy conditions yesterday, so neither one of us were throwing loops, just down loops and, you know, tossing it around in the waves, but.
Yeah. All right, so one thing I'm noticing about the Evo D, wow, the Hypermodel is whenever it hits by a gust, some kites tend to get pushed downwind when they hit by the gust. The Hypermodel really shoots forward in the window when it gets hit by gusts, which actually really helps kind of soak those gusts up. Oh boy, here we go. It really helps absorb some of those gusts by kind of pushing up into them. So that leading edge pushes into the wind when it's getting hit by gusts instead of getting pushed downwind by them, which I always like that of the kite. It always makes it feel a little bit better. It makes it feel like it can handle a little more wind. So I think on an overpowered day, the Hypermodel will definitely excel. But as is in moderate conditions though, it's definitely holding its own great. Flies really well, plenty of power, good boost. Just not quite the conditions I like for looping. Landings are a bit sketchy on the backside of waves. So I think I might save my knees on this session and hope for another one. But so far, really big fan of this kite. Bar pressure is super light. Yeah, so I mean, as far as like different applications for both the kites, what do you think? I feel like the Hypermodel would be a little bit more of that all-around style. It's still good for big air, but I feel like it definitely is a little bit more versatile than the Evo. I know the Evo is an all-around kite, but...
Yeah, definitely. The Reedin is going to be a little bit better looping-wise. Come back in a later video for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say better. I'd just say it's a faster, tighter loop, I guess. It depends what you're looking for in your loops. The Evo is going to be a more powerful loop.
Yep.
It generates more power in that loop. It gives you a little bit of a yank in your loop, where I feel like the Hypermodel is going to be a little bit more. You can probably get that if you bring it real low. You can probably control it a little bit a little bit more and get kind of a lower arcing loop.
Yep.
But if you just go in and fishing rod it, that thing's gonna spin, pivot right on itself and go right back up to zenith.
Yep.
And the other thing I felt like was the hang time on the Hypermodel versus the Evo D-Lab. I felt like the Evo D-Lab had a higher hang time, but I felt like you could make up for it with the Hypermodel with this little bit more active flying of the Kite.
Yep.
As long as you're kind of moving it across the wind window while you're up in the air, it tended to hold up a little bit longer than something like the Evo. Or the Evo, I feel like if I just sheet and go, it's nice, simple, brainless. You don't have to actively fly the Kite much.
Totally. Who are they for?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're for anybody who's looking for that next step up in their kind of Kite performance. I'd definitely compare it to like a full suspension, full carbon mountain bike versus aluminum.
Yep.
Do you need it necessarily? Not everybody needs it. Is it nice to have? Absolutely, as you get the next nice step up in performance. So yeah, size options for both. What do we have for the Evo?
We have 7 through 13 stacked.
Yep, and for the Hypermodel, you got 6 through 14. So honestly, I feel like that the way they spread them, honestly, you're probably gonna get similar feel out of the 14 and 13 with the Evo from what we noticed on our riding session. So I feel like they're about maybe a meter apart from each other, just from a gruntiness feel.
Yep.
But honestly, I think good size range for both. I don't think I'd want any more or any less options for those, really.
Yep, pretty close. Don't know if we talked about it. Weight. The Hypermodel came in at 5.6 pounds, whereas the Evo D-Lab came in at 5.2 pounds.
Yeah, so a little bit lighter weight.
Yep.
I'm guessing the main difference comes in from the other materials they're using on the Kite. Could this be the D-Lab alone as far as how they're each brand stitching it? But I think I know Duotone's using their SLS material as kind of the reinforcement patches on there. The Hypermodel is using more of a standard Dacron. I think it is a lighter weight Dacron, but it's not SLS necessarily. It's not the exact same. So that could be where the weight's coming in, or just how they're stitching it. So, but I mean,
pretty close.
0.4 pound of a difference really isn't crazy. They're very similar.
Yep, totally.
I wouldn't deter that number from going with one or the other. That wouldn't be my main choice of what would be my deciding factor. But it is neat to see the weight difference in 9 meter to 9 meter. Granted, there's probably a little bit of sand in each of them at this point, so those are beach numbers.
Yeah.
We weighed them in the back on the scale, so take our numbers with a grain of salt. It's not factory perfect by any means.
Yeah. Guys on the beach, don't forget your adapters. It's just going to be your Duotone adapter for the Duotone.
And for the Hypermodel, you're going to need the old max flow valve. Yeah, so with the Hypermodel, you do get 2 max flow valves with the Kite when you buy it. There's one attached to the outside of the bag. I actually took it off yesterday to use it because I went to the beach without one. And then there's actually one inside the front pocket as well. So you get 2 valves with it, which is nice that they include that because not everybody has that valve anymore.
Yep, and Duotone you got to purchase separately, so don't forget to add that onto your purchase. All right, guys, this has been Dustin.
And Pat.
Checking out the all-new Evo D-Lab and the Hypermodel.
Yeah, this is our little comparison about the two. If you guys have any questions about either of the kites, let us know down below and we'll do our best to get back to you.